Okay, you're all very welcome to this third day of training that the Department of Technology team are providing, and this on the subject of delivering a live online class. I'm joined by my colleagues here, Dara Coakley and Garrod O'Sullivan. I don't know, Garrod, do you want to say a quick word?
Yeah, sure. I'll just press my face to the camera for a moment. So I just want to welcome everyone, really. People who are tuning in through YouTube or through Zoom or indeed watching later. So we're seeing some really great in terms of engagement. We hope you all find this and other sessions useful. The session will be recorded, which isn't to say that those of you who are watching it live now can stop paying attention, but just to say, don't worry if you don't catch everything. You'll be able to review things afterwards. I want to thank Shane as well for his hard work in putting all of this together and say that because of what's being demoed, it's kind of difficult and demanding to pull it off. Shane is essentially running a live session inside a live session for some portion of today's training. So it's a bit like the movie Inception. So your patience appreciated. Thanks very much. Back to you, Shane.
Perfect. Thanks, Garrod. So I'll just get on with it. We're just going to look at delivering a live online class. This is one of the three sort of primary options we're telling staff about in terms of being able to remote teach. So I suppose the session itself is going to be quite practical. We're going to look at what the conferences feature is. So the conferences feature is the feature or tool within Canvas that allows you to deliver live online. We're going to look at setting up a class and scheduling a class. We're going to look at the interface. So that's the conferences or big blue button interface. Running a class live. So that's the sort of the risky part for me, I suppose, as Garrod is saying, because I'm doing it at a distance and doing it within this sort of live webinar. So just bear with me if there's any sort of technical hitch on that. But also, I suppose we're going to look at once we've started to run the class and have the live class happening, look at some of the features we can use, and also then look at ending the session, playing back a recording and viewing some usage stats as well. We'll also talk about who to contact for what, and open it up to questions and discussion. So anyone who's joining us on Zoom you're very welcome to ask questions, and we can kind of address them after the session. And that's where we sort of just end it for the YouTube stream. So anyone interested on YouTube in asking questions, you can do so through YouTube as well. We have Dara monitoring that as well. So I suppose you hopefully are aware, if you're not, of the resources that we have on the on our site. So this site has been taken over over the last 2 weeks to promote the whole remote teaching aspect of things and put that up front and center under the circumstances. So there are 3 primary options there that people can use, and any combination of the above can be used. So Canvas as the hub, I suppose, of activity. You can also record your computer screen. So Dara will be doing another session in a minute on screencasting at 5 o'clock, and all of the sessions are also recorded. And also this session on live online class delivery. Now, all of these resources are built on quite regularly, so keep an eye on this site. But I suppose on that particular page, you see sort of a follow-on to what we're going to do today: scheduling, setting up, sharing, recording, and concluding. So just a few initial tips. So for delivering online, I would check on your minimum requirements. Even though the tool is quite forgiving, it's HTML5 based, which means that it's based in your browser. There's no need for any sort of local client or add-on that you need to run a session. But the minimum requirements from your point of view would be a microphone either inbuilt to your laptop or your computer, or a headset to run a session. And that is that you'll be able to broadcast your audio live online. Now, you can test conferences in Canvas. There's also a test link that we can pass on to you there. And that's on the help documentation as well, where you can just do a quick online test. Deciding on a schedule is important, I suppose. So if you are planning on delivering some live sessions, it's important maybe to set out some sort of a schedule ahead of time so that your students know when that is going to happen, and maybe to advertise it through your announcements feature in Canvas and the other communication tools that you have available to you in Canvas, such as your discussion as well. Give yourself a good, a handy 10 minutes just to set up before your live session. That just ensures that you've got your time to start the session, to make sure that people can hear you, that your audio is set up, and that you can run the session then at the advertised time. For support, Canvas and Big Blue Button are actually covered under Tier 1 support provided by Canvas, which is good news for staff. So staff can access this support 24/7 right through the weekend, right through the year. So for instance, if you're testing this out over the weekend or anything, there's no problem in contacting support to help you out there. Big Blue Button is covered under Tier 1 support, so you can use that 24/7 helpline number and the usual email address there. And also, I suppose, if you have any sort of local queries to do with running Big Blue Button in CIT or any difficulties there, feel free to get on to us at tel.team@cit.ie. The key features of conferences. So conferences is how you access the live feature in Canvas. I'll show you in a minute, but I suppose the key features from your point of view to setting up and recording a live session are the fact that you can share your audio and your webcam feed. So if you have a webcam, you can share that also. You can share PowerPoint files and slide decks. You can share also PDF files there as well. You can share your screen. So sharing your screen is useful if you're doing some sort of software demonstration or something like that. You can share external video. So that means being able to share, YouTube videos, Vimeo videos, just basically videos that are hosted on video platforms, and to be able to talk over those videos as well. You can chat with your students. So that's quite important. You can chat with your students through a sort of a text chat, an instant messaging feature in the platform, and you can also record the session. So that's important so that you can record the session and that it's made available to your students afterwards in Canvas. So I suppose this is where the practical bit comes in. We're going to have a quick look at the conferences feature within Canvas. So Canvas, I suppose any module that's being delivered by staff in CIT will have the conferences feature enabled on it. Until quite recently, that wouldn't have been the case. I suppose, again, just to facilitate that option of having live class delivery, you can use the conferences feature on any module in Canvas, and that's covered by a premium license that's provided by CIT just over the last 2 days. So in the conferences, in a module, so this is just a sample module, you can access the conferences feature in the main menu by hitting conferences. And once that loads, you'll see, this is just a test module, but you can see a lot of conferences that I've done as sort of mini tests in these training sessions and in live tests with other people. But I suppose this is the main area where you can set up and start and access the recordings. And that's the same for the students. So from a student's point of view, obviously they won't be able to start a conference, but they will be able to join a conference. In new conferences, so that's where you actually set up one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just start to set up a live session, a schedule live session. So this opens up this option here where you can enter your title. The type is always Big Blue Button. So Big Blue Button is the tool, is the platform. And duration is important here. So usually kind of, try and keep this to what you roughly think your lecture is going to take. I think 60 minutes is a good rule of thumb. It might be shorter, but I suppose the reason that the duration is important is, say if you had that at 10 minutes and you ran beyond the 10 minutes, students wouldn't be able to join that session beyond the 10 minutes. And you're often going to have students that are going to join a session later than, you know, the advertised time, which is perfectly fine, I think. That's where the time is critical there, the duration. So maybe just err on the side of caution there, maybe add a few minutes to how long you think it will take. Also, I would enable recording by default. So you have that option to record within the session. The other thing that's important here is description. So I would normally put in the time and date and topic in here. That's because when you're setting up a session, it's not for any particular time. It doesn't add it into the calendar or anything like that. So it's important maybe to put in time. So we're going to go at 1400. We're going to go on the date of, what's today? The 20th. And topic. The topic usually is covered maybe in the name of the conference, but maybe you have something else, maybe an elaboration and any other information here. So description might go in there as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invite all module members. Now, in this instance, anyone that's enrolled in the module will receive an invite to this conference. So if you wanted to be selective about that, you could untick that box and you can actually choose other participants. So if I wanted to just choose Dara and John here, for instance, it would mean that only they would get a notification and only they would be able to participate in the session with me. Now, I think in most cases, you're going to be inviting all module members. Just to be aware as well, if you're inviting all module members, it's going to invite other teaching staff on the module as well. So once we're all okay with that, we can update. And once I've done that, the participants should receive a notification by email and in their sort of dashboard and canvas of this conference about to take place. So they get the notification, they get the description. Once we are happy that that's the case, obviously we can go in and we can edit this at any time. So if we go to edit, we can change any of those details and the people that are invited. The next thing we do is we go to start our session. So that's when you actually start to launch the tool itself. So if I go to start, what it will do is it'll launch up within the browser. And it offers you two options here. One is to use your microphone and the other one is to use just to listen only. So I suppose the difference here between these two options, number one, the microphone is the one you'd be using. If you're delivering live online and using your microphone, whether it's a headset or the inbuilt microphone on your laptop or workstation, that's the option you'd be using. This is the option though that we'd be advertising for students. So that's where they would listen only. And that just means that they don't have the ability to take control over their microphone and come in on top of the session. Now, that's going to be the norm, I think, for a lot of situations where you're delivering maybe learning content. You'll still be able to interact with the students through chat, which I'll show you in a minute. But that's sort of quite important as a feature that they can listen only. Now you also have the ability to mute them as well. If I go to microphone, it's going to prompt me within the browser to allow that. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but it's important to just give your browser the permission to access the access the application, access the microphone. Sorry, there was two options that flashed by there as well. So one was the thumbs up if you heard yourself, and the other one was a thumbs down. And what that means basically is if you cannot hear yourself, that you should click the thumbs down, and then you can change the source of your audio. So that's maybe an issue if you have multiple audio sources, multiple inputs into your computer. So I suppose the next thing to do is maybe just have a quick look through the interface. Dara, I'm not sure, did you receive an invite into the session there? If you didn't, I might reconfigure it. But just to look at the interface itself, we have the participants here on the left. So that's the users. And so Dara is just after coming in. Great, Dara, thank you. We have the instructor, the lecturer, who's denoted by the box here on the left and my initials, and you have the participants, which are the circles. Now, you'll see also beside each of these, you'll see the icon for what kind of privilege they have. So Dara has come in listen only mode, and I am here with using my microphone. Now, the next panel in here that's important is the public chat, and the chat is basically where you can chat with your students, and students can ask you questions, and this is really the hub of activity for a live online session. So typically what you do, and Dara, thanks for contributing in there. So Dara has said hello all. If you wanted to check that people could hear you, so Dara, can you just confirm that you can hear me okay through Big Blue Button or conferences, please? So Dara can hear me, that's great. And basically, I suppose, if you're asking questions of students, they respond usually through the web chat. Now, as we go along through the interface, I can actually reply to Dara here, and it's going to go down to the send message to public chat option, and I'm going to say, thanks, Dara, and all. So typically, you'll see all of your students down here in this list on the left. The other option that's quite important, and I haven't started yet, but if I'm comfortable enough and I want to start the session recording, I can go up here to start recording. It asks me, it says that I can pause it later if I want to, and I can click yes. And that's actually after starting the session recording. And you can see up here that this session is now being recorded. So I suppose recording a session is quite important. I normally just, if I have a post-it note or something like that, I'll put it on my screen and I'll just remind myself to record, because none of these sessions automatically record. So that's just an important kind of thing to get used to if you're using this tool. So we're happy that it's going ahead, it's recording. We can see the main kind of stage here, which is where we share our content. And then there are a few options around here. So this is sort of the default sort of screen at the start. I can minimize that, I can hide it, or I can restore it. And down here on the left, we have actions. So in the actions, if I go to, I have three options here. You can start a poll. So you have polls, you have the ability to upload a presentation, or you can share external video. Just down here on the bottom of the interface, you also have the ability to mute or unmute. So if I mute myself, now you can hear me, but Dara can't. So I can, I suppose this is where I can go, can you hear me? So if you had any kind of technical difficulties with your, okay, Dara says he can't. Dara, can you just confirm that you can hear me this time through the web chat? No, he can't. So it's important, I suppose, that you can kind of get to use those two features to complement each other. So one is the web chat, the other is the is your audio control. Now you can leave your audio as well. So that's where you can sort of come out and you can choose to change your device or whatever. The other option there is that you can share your webcam. So this is probably going to show up quite stuttery on the thing. I'm going to just bring it up a second for you so you can see what this means. So this again, you probably can't see, but it's asking me to use my camera and to allow the use of my camera in session. And once it finds my webcam, it'll give me a preview so I can see myself there. And it's quite jittery because I'm sharing this over a stream. So I'm just going to close that down there. But you have different settings. You have the ability for low quality, high quality, medium, high definition. I think, you know, unless you have a very very, very good internet connection with, not a lot of contention, I'd maybe avoid using the webcam a lot. And you can use the webcam maybe to introduce yourself at the start of the session, but just be aware that it does take up a bit of resource in this tool because everything is running through the browser. The other thing you can do is you can share your screen. So if I click on this option, it'll allow me to share my whole screen. Now, I'm not going to do this right now because it's just going to share the whole big blue button interface, which we don't want to see in its infinite, I suppose, multiplicity, as Garrod was saying, because if I did share this, it would be like that whole Inception idea. There'd be a screen within a screen within a screen within a screen. So just when you're sharing, I suppose, just queue up what you want to share, and then you can share your screen or share an application if you want to. So that's where you'd access that. The next thing you can do is you can go into actions. And I suppose most of you are going to be looking to share something like a PowerPoint file or a PDF file. And just to note, I suppose, when you are sharing content, you upload it first. So you can upload a presentation. And it does suggest maybe PDF as the recommended file type, but it's perfectly fine to use Office documents like Word or PowerPoint. The only thing just to be aware of is that maybe if you're using complex symbols or things that might not translate over very well, like equations, it's better to start to flatten that down and to export it as a PDF from, if it's PowerPoint or Word or something like that. That means that you have no danger of the symbols not being interpreted or displayed correctly on the screen. So if I browse for files, I can actually find a PowerPoint file on my desktop here. Just going to click on that there. So this is a PowerPoint file. And once I'm happy with that, I can upload. And that gives me a sort of a converting file dialog. Once that's done, we should see a prompt, and there it is in front of us. So that's our PowerPoint file converted over, and I can use the slide options here, next slide, and back. So your whole presentation basically is converted over there into this format that's really easy to view for students. So Dara, can you just confirm to me as the student that you're seeing the delivering live slide there on the screen? Great. And as your students are typing, you see that prompt as well to say they are typing, so you get a sort of an indication as to them engaging as well. So when we want to sort of change the share, then we can also put in an external video. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to pull up a video from our video library here. So just bear with me a second. Okay, I'm going to share external video, and here you can put in YouTube, Vimeo, or Twitch, or any other of those sort of video URLs. I'm going to use, I suppose for the most part, people are going to be using YouTube. And if I go to share new video, it'll allow me to share that video. So this is a kind of a training session from the one and only Garrod, so you should be able to hear that. And that kind of goes through a kind of a video that's hosted on YouTube but plays back for the students so you can kind of talk over in your class. So I suppose at any stage you can switch those shares. You can stop sharing external video, you can upload a presentation, and they really are the primary things to get you going within your session. Now there are other features. There's the ability to have a whiteboard and have breakout sessions and stuff like that. But I suppose initially we just want to maybe show you how to start the session, share it, record it, engage with your students, and to switch shares. And if you're able to get going with that initially, that'll get you by an awful lot of situations, really. What we will have is a few screencasts on the other particular features for you, and obviously we'll be doing more of this training as well. But that's, I suppose, they are the main features. So for to kind of do a recap of the interface itself, we have participants here on the left. We have this ability to chat with them here in the second portion here. You have the ability then in this main stage area to share slides or share video, and also to run things like polls. Now, once we're happy that we're kind of the session is completed, and just be aware, I suppose, at any stage students can pop in as well to the session once it's within that duration that you've set. You know, they'll pop in here on the left. Now, Dara, I'm just going to say goodbye. Thanks for coming along today, and hope to see you at the next session. Dara says, bye all. That's great. Now, so I'm going to go up here to the options on the right here, and I'm going to end my meeting. Just before that, actually, there's an option here to invite a guest to join the meeting. So we've had a few questions from people about, you know, whether they'd want to maybe invite a guest speaker, so someone that doesn't necessarily have access to your module, but you want to invite into the live session online. So that's where we might get a guest speaker from another college or from industry to come in and do a talk to your students. And that's perfectly fine. You can go into invite guests to join, and you can actually share this big long URL with them, or an email invite. The email invite will open up whatever email client you have. So I suppose if you don't want that to happen, you can just copy that URL there. So back to ending the session, if I go options and I go to end meeting, that'll just say we're going to end the session. It gives me this sort of feedback rating option here if I want to just put in a kind of a star rating for the functionality of Big Blue Button. I just leave that a second. And I suppose maybe slightly counterintuitively, you have to end the session here also. The reason that you're having to end it here is because one is the actual session itself within Big Blue Button, and this is actually closing it off so that students cannot access it anymore. So once you end it now, that will start to commit the recording to the servers. So that's one thing to note. If I go to conferences now, I'm not going to see that session right away. So you'll see concluded conferences, and even though we recorded the session and it ended at 14:27, it doesn't show the recording yet. So what I'm going to show you here is an example of a recorded session. So if I go to the drop down here, you see that arrow. You don't see it in the first one. You see video and you see statistics. So if I go to video and play the video, that'll actually play a recording from yesterday. I'm not sure if you can hear that. I'm not sure it's showing my or sharing my audio, my sound card with you, but I suppose this is playing back the whole session from yesterday that I did, or a portion of the recording I did. And what you do as well is you see in that recording, you can see the interactions on the right hand side here. So you can see John Keneally. Now, so from our session with Dara there, we would actually see the whole conversation we had with him here in the chat as well. So that gives you a record, I suppose, of that. The other thing you can do is you can speed up the recording. So this is quite a useful tool for students when they're reviewing content, so that they can speed up or slow down the playback of the recording. They can also make that larger, so they're not seeing that that kind of instant chat on the right hand side. So if I go just close that tab out and I go back here, it does, I suppose, rule of thumb, maybe just allow around 2 hours for the rendering out of the recording into Canvas. And I suppose currently, because there's a lot of traffic with these live tools, you know, that processing time might slow down slightly, but I think it's safe enough to say that you have maybe around 2 hours for that recording to be available. So there's quite a lot of questions from people where they can't see the recording straight away. That doesn't happen straight away, just allow a small bit of time. Obviously, you have the ability to delete any of these. So if you were doing practice sessions or anything, just be aware when you're creating a practice session, maybe not to invite your students to it because they get a notification. And also you can, if you wanted to delete any sessions that were test sessions, you could delete them and clean up this area for yourself. Now, the other thing that's useful here as well is statistics. So we've had quite a few questions, I suppose, about engagement and how to maybe how to view the sort of engagement that students might have in your sessions or in your content in general. So there'll be a bit of discussion online about how you can use learning analytics and Canvas. But also, I suppose, just to add to that, you can view your statistics to do with the live sessions and view them afterwards. So this was the session we did yesterday. We have video and we have statistics. And if I go to statistics here, it opens up a sort of a report of who was in the session, how long, what time they joined, what time they left. And this activity score is based on the interactions that they do in the session. So John Keneally here was just chatting with me yesterday. I suppose if he's doing polls and other bits and pieces, that activity score changes. The attention just is looking at, again, the engagement. So whether they were speaking, messaging, using emojis, raising hands. And I suppose for students, it'll be important that we present how they can actually interact with these sessions. So again, there'll be a few screencasts and resources for students so that they know how to interact with a session. In the duration, you have moderators and viewers. So a moderator is just another word for instructor or lecturer. Viewers are generally participants. And you have the ability to download that as a CSV as well. So I suppose everything in terms of the data generated within Canvas can actually have extra meaning for you if you're trying to, join the dots and see what sort of engagement students had in different things. So it is possible to export, that data from Canvas and conferences, and maybe to be able to do your own sort of Excel sheets where you sort of combine that data and look at how students have engaged with content over time. So they're the main things. I'm just going to go back to my slide deck there if I can find it. Yep. And just look at a couple of just sum up tips. So for some tips at the end, it says maybe in classes, students should participate in listen only mode. So that'll obviously be a communication that goes out to students anyway, but from your point of view, it mightn't be any harm to announce to students if you are announcing to them about a scheduled session that they use the listen only mode. Now, if you want them to use the mic mode, that's perfectly fine, but that's maybe more sort of a case for when you're doing group-based sessions, or the equivalent of when you break students out into groups and stuff like that in the face-to-face environment. The listen only option just prevents it being a bit more chaotic online, and everyone coming in on top of each other potentially. Now, you as an instructor always have control over muting people, etc. But this just makes it a small bit easier in terms of the administration. Use the chat to communicate with students. So chat is really powerful. That's a really great tool to be able to have a back and forth with your students. So if you're thinking of equivalent technologies, the likes of WhatsApp, it's very similar. So you just have a chat back and forth with the students. Don't get held up by every question. I suppose that's quite important. And I suppose it's good to be able to, once you get familiar with the technology and everything else and just more comfortable, that you maybe set out a few ground rules to your students. And one of them, I suppose, is that you're going to answer questions maybe as a group of questions rather than every question coming in through the session, because that'll just hold you up in your tracks as you're trying to deliver content. Now you can build in maybe question sessions in a way. You can build in points in your lecture that you will maybe open up, ask the question of the students, and then the students answer your question or comment. And that's perfectly fine. That's really important actually, because building in sessions or questions from your side and asking questions of the students is really important, because it just prevents you from maybe, burning through your content really quickly. And that is, I suppose, when we're talking to people, particularly in the online programs, when they're delivering for the first time, that's maybe an experience they tend to have early on, is that when you're not getting as much feedback as you would in the face-to-face environment, the faces of the students in the class, um, as sort of prompts for yourself, or confirmation that they're understanding. You can use things like chat, obviously, to gauge that, but it's good to ask your students questions rather than just being you presenting through the whole thing. Who to contact is important here. So again, Canvas and Tier 1 support are excellent for support. So, if you are trialing out this after hours through the weekend, or whenever, there's support there for that, with Canvas 24/7 support through chat, email, and through the phone. The Technology Enhanced Learning team, which is us, our help desk is hopping at the moment, but we're endeavoring to reply to everyone as soon as we can at tel.team@cit.ie. So that's where we can maybe add a bit of local context if there's a need there. And there's quite a lot of queries coming in there. But do maybe touch back on our site, tel.team, or tel.cit.ie rather, the one I showed you a while ago, which has an ongoing list of resources that we're building really through the days to support people to remote teach. Teams is sort of a live tool, but more for sort of staff to staff interaction. So for support on that, IT services are really great on that as well. And the other question maybe people would have is there a tool for students to actually engage with each other in a similar way? So I suppose when you're using Big Blue Button, you are the only person that can start those sessions. But if you want your students to have group-based sessions with each other, out of hours kind of thing, they have access to Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts is part of the Google Suite, and they can have those sessions at any time. So that's what our colleagues in IT services are supporting and advertising as well. And obviously there's more resources being developed there as we go along as well. So sorry, I just went slightly over time. We're doing these sessions, trying to keep them to around a half an hour, but maybe this is the point at which we can look at asking or answering any questions from you guys. Anyone at this stage, maybe from the live stream on YouTube, is where we maybe conclude the session, but do look out for the other sessions that will be running over today and into next week as well, and look out for those resources. So I'm just